Welcome into the Commanders Report live show. I am your host, Jack Sperry, and today we got a bunch of great Commanders content coming your way, getting you guys ready for preseason week 2 versus the Miami Dolphins. First up on today's show, the latest news and rumors. The Commanders and Dolphins did have a joint practice today, so I'll have the latest on that. Also, head coach Dan Quinn says that Jahan Dotson might be on the hot seat in terms of being the number 2 receiver for the Commanders this year. I'll go over that and what I think might happen with Dotson this season. Also, I'll go full bore here into my preseason preview for this week's game against the Miami Dolphins. And then also we got the live Commanders mailbag. So if you guys want to have your voice on the show, if you guys want to get your question on the show today is your opportunity to do so. And the way that you get your question on the show is you use hashtag Commanders down there in the live chat, or you guys can super chat as well to guarantee your question gets on the mailbag. With that, let's bring in our producer today. And by the way, he'll be hosting our watch party on Saturday, his first ever solo watch party for the Commanders Report. Joey Peterson, how's it going, my friend? Good to see you.
Good to be back, Jack. Saturday's going to be electric. Hopefully you guys are there to watch with me.
It's going to be a lot of fun, man. Joey is going to be doing the one-man party there. I've got some other things I need to get done here. So Joey is going to be taking care of business on Saturday. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button and join us at around 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, where Joey's going to be going live for this weekend's watch party. Jaden Daniels, it sounds like, is going to get some more run this week, more than just one drive. So it should be a fun quarter of football, at least, here for you guys this weekend. So it should be a good amount of fun here. If you guys want to get a question on today's show, you guys can use hashtag Commanders down there in the live chat or super chat to get on the show. We got Jonathan Taylor in the chat right now. We got Buddy Bear. We got Greg. We got Keith. We got a bunch of good Commanders fans in the chat right now. So if you guys want to send in a donation today, you guys don't have to. It's not mandatory by any stretch of the imagination. But here is our menu for today. Any super chat, any donation, any Venmo, whatever the case may be, we're going to give you guys some love. We're going to give you guys a shout out on the show. $5, we'll do an F the Cowboys chant. $10, we will take shots. And $20, you get to join Commanders Report Hog Mafia, which is our donation club here at the Commanders Report. And what you get when you join Hog Mafia is you get that awesome Hog Mafia sticker next to your super chats for life. And you also get a shout out on every single live show. So I want to give a shout out here to our Hog Mafia members. We doubled in size our last watch party here, Joey. So big shout out to IQ Barbecue, Marco Gorman, Omar's Burner, Lord Buddy Bear, Luke O'Gorman, TJ, Commando Mike, and James Howard. Appreciate each and every one of you guys. If you want to join Hog Mafia here on the Commanders Report, you can send in a $20 super chat or Venmo, Cashapp, or PayPal. We do prefer these channels right here. I'm at Jack-Sperry on Venmo, # Captain Jack 19 on Cash App, and then at Captain Jackrabbit on PayPal. The reason why we prefer these channels over Super Chat is because YouTube takes 30% of every single dollar you spend on Super Chats, all right? So we only get 70% of the donation money that you guys send in via Super Chat, whereas with Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal, we get to keep more of that money so we can give you guys free Commanders content right here on YouTube every single day. So help us out right now, man. We're going to get into our first segment here pretty soon. But if you guys want to get a shout out to kick off today's show, all you guys got to do is get down there in the comments section and type me, M-E. Get down there right now, type those me's, and we'll give you guys some shout outs. I see Greg down there. He's already putting his hashtag Commanders in there. We got Eugene. What's up, Eugene? We got Dennis. We got Kenny Strasser. We got Keith Payne. We got Jonathan Taylor. We got Cassie Voth, my girlfriend, in the chat. Everyone say hi to Cassie. We got Pyro Empire. It says Go Commanders. Go song by Urantane. I don't know what that means. We got JG in the chat as well. We got Carolina Mapping. Says that Trace McSorley signing was unnecessarily. We're actually going to talk a little bit about the Trace McSorley signing today. It's kind of interesting. Of course, that's a name a lot of people know because he was a Big Ten quarterback. He had that viral song that came out on him, throw it on a dime, all that stuff.
I was just looking that up exactly as you were saying that.
Just a kid from Briarwood wearing number 9. Oh, good old days, man. We got Stanford in the chat. We got Carolina Mapping. We got Lamont Walker. We got Greg. He says, let's play that song. Unfortunately, I think it might be copyrighted, so I don't think we can play that.
We can't do that. Sorry about it. We can sing it for you, though.
And then we got Kevin Farr says, what's up, Kevin? Good to see you, my friend. Okay, man, let's get into the content here. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon right now. Like the stream. Reason why we want you to like the stream, guys, if you want to be a real one today, is because it tells the YouTube algorithm that you're enjoying the show, and it's going to push this live show out to as many Commanders fans as possible. And on today's show, in just a second here, in about a minute, we'll be getting into the latest news and rumors surrounding your Washington Commanders. Also, I got my preseason preview for week 2 of the preseason against the Miami Dolphins, and then we're going to finish up today's show with the live Q&A portion. Again, make sure you guys use hashtag Commanders down there in the chat if you want to get a question on the show, or if you want to skip the line, you guys can super chat to make sure you get on the mailbag today. Producer Joey, we ready to get things going?
Let's rock and roll.
Let's get it going right now with the latest news and rumors surrounding the Washington Commanders. Welcome into the Commanders Report. I am your host, Jack Sperry, not Tyler Jones. Producer Joey in the chat. I get to slap him with a tortilla for that mistake. But today on the show, Commanders make 2 roster moves. We'll be breaking them down and what this kind of means for the Washington Commanders moving forward as we continue on here in the preseason. Then we'll discuss whether Jahan Dotson is on the hot seat as this team's number 2 wide receiver. Dan Quinn made it seem like there is an open competition for the number 2 slot in this rotation, which obviously indicates Dotson's not doing too well. And then we'll finish up today's show with some last-minute wide receiver targets. If Jahan Dotson isn't playing all that well right now and they still need a bona fide number 2 wide receiver, what kind of options are still available for the Commanders to go out and get? But before we get into the content today, help us win our like battle today here on the Commanders Report. So producer Joey again, or producer Coop, who made this graphic. The Cowboys Report got 822 likes, even though they have our logo, and we had 0 likes. We have 0 likes on this video right now, so help us win this like battle here. We have to beat 822 likes from the Cowboys Report's video yesterday, and if that's not enough to get you guys to click that thumbs up icon, here is Dallas Cowboys Report host Tom Downey and what he told me about this Commanders team the other day. Even my 2-year-old daughter knows that the Commanders are the laughingstock of the NFL. First-round draft picks disappointing one by one, with Jaden Daniels now set to be the next in line. I can't wait to see America's team take that joke of a team's lunch money again this year. So if you want to shut Tom Downey up right now, even though the producers are screwing up a little bit here, guys, at the graphics, make sure you click that thumbs up icon right now to kick off today's show. So let's get into the roster moves that the Washington Commanders have made here in recent days. And they signed Trace McSorley, a quarterback that's spent time with the Patriots. He spent time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He spent time with the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, he was Penn State Nittany Lion legend Trace McSorley is now a Washington Commander for the time being, and in the corresponding move, the team released Mason Brooks, the offensive lineman who has really struggled throughout this training camp. He really struggled in that preseason game against the Jets, so if you're going to make room for somebody, I think Mason Brooks was probably the right cut to make. Now, when it comes to Trace McSorley and whether he has any shot at making this team, I really don't think so. Right now, you do have Jaden Daniels, you got Marcus Mariota as his backup, and then Jeff Driscoll, I think, is good enough to be that number 3 quarterback. McSorley's going to have to go out here in pretty much just 2 weeks and prove that he is definitely a better quarterback than Jeff Driscoll, somebody that has NFL experience. So unless Driscoll completely just craps the bed here these last couple weeks and McSorley really plays well, don't think McSorley's going to end up making this team. Pretty much just think they got him so they could fill out time in some of these preseason games. So now let's shift over to Jahan Dotson here, because this is the interesting story of the day in my opinion. Head coach Dan Quinn spoke to the media before the Commanders' joint practice with the Miami Dolphins this week, and he made it seem like the wide receiver 2 spot here with the Commanders is still wide open. This is what Coach Q had to say. We are right in the middle of it. You'll see a lot of guys in today. You'll see 2, 3, 4, 5. There are a lot of guys that are really battling. I've been really impressed with Olamide Zaccheaus. I thought that he's had a really strong camp. Looking forward to get Luke McCaffrey some extra work into here. Talking about the wide receiver 2 competition and the fact that Jahan Dotson is not firmly placed as that number 2 receiver as a former first-round pick going into his third year is definitely concerning. If guys like Olamide Zaccheaus and Luke McCaffrey and De'Ami Brown are all outperforming Jahan Dotson right now, and right now there's an open competition for that wide receiver 2 spot, I think that speaks volumes as to kind of the slow start that Dotson has had to camp this year. Of course, he struggled last season. He had some drop issues, after really a promising rookie campaign. And right now it seems like there's other guys, other veteran options on this roster that are outperforming Jahan Dotson in these practices, and that's definitely concerning to me. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Are you worried about wide receiver Jahan Dotson? Give me a yes or a no for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds, and when that happens, take advantage of that time by giving me a yes or a no. So let's say, for the sake of argument here, Jahan Dotson's struggling, and the Commanders don't feel like they have anything going at the wide receiver 2 position in terms of Dotson. What other options do they have here? And if we take a look at the depth chart here for the Washington Commanders wide receiver room, right, you've got guys like Olamide Zaccheaus, okay? You got guys like Luke McCaffrey. You have guys like De'Ami Brown that are all competing for that number 2 wide receiver spot. And producer Joey, we can just forget forget the depth chart there. But, there's definitely a lot of guys competing for this wide receiver 2 spot, and I definitely think that there are some options out there, even still on the open market, that the Commanders can still consider. So coming up here on the Commanders Report, we're going to be talking about the top available wide receiver targets for your Washington Commanders. But before we get into it, man, let's get into our sponsor read today with our friends at PrizePicks, which is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, you just go against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become a part of the PrizePicks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks, which means you can turn $10 into $1,000. That is, if you know ball. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long. So you take a look at some of these week 1 projections here. I'm going to be a little bit pessimistic here. I'm going to take the less on Tyreek Hill receiving yards. I'm going to take the less on CJ Stroud passing yards. Same thing with Dak Prescott, because F the Cowgirls, man. But if you guys want to get this thing going for yourselves right now, all you have to do is download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on the PrizePicks app today for a deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, run your game. So some of the best free agency options for the Washington Commanders at wide receiver, if Jahan Dotson just isn't cutting it. Michael Thomas, somebody that has been a number 1 receiver in this league before, but he's been dealing with several injuries. I still think Thomas would give something to this Commanders receiving room that they don't have, and somebody that's a really big body, that's really good in the red zone as a contested catch specialist. He's still a pretty darn good route runner as well when he is still healthy. Now, he does have some concerns in terms of his presence in the locker room. He had a big falling out with the New Orleans Saints over these last several years, so that's why he hasn't been picked up yet. And then also Juju Smith-Schuster, somebody that used to be a big-time contributor for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was a big contributor in Kansas City Chiefs' first Super Bowl championship in this last 2-year run, but he spent 1 year with the Patriots. He got hurt again. He's got a bunch of knee issues, so maybe that's not going to work out for the Commanders either, but both of these guys would give the Commanders something they don't really have right now, and that's a big presence in this wide receiver room, and somebody that's over 6 foot, which is something they don't have among their candidates to start. And I do think a team to watch here in terms of guys that they might cut is the Houston Texans, because right now the Texans have a plethora of players that could certainly be legitimate NFL wide receivers in their wide receiver room, but hey man, they can only hang on to so many, right? You have Stephon Diggs, you have Tank Dell, you have Nico Collins, right? You have John Mechie, Robert Woods, and Xavier Hutchinson, and these are kind of the guys on the outside, right? One of these guys could very well end up getting cut by the Houston Texans, and if they do, I think the Washington Commanders should certainly consider poaching one of these guys once they hit the open market, because I've been watching these guys all throughout the preseason and training camp to this point, and man, the wide receivers in Houston know what they're doing. I definitely think one of these guys is going to end up hitting the open market, and the Commanders could be beneficiaries of that. Now, I also will say that I wouldn't completely count out Brandon Ayuk as well. Okay, and the reason why I say that, and I know what you're saying at home, Jack, the Commanders took themselves out of the running, and that's why I think it's a little bit of a long shot chance here, but based on what we've heard from negotiations between the 49ers and Steelers, Pittsburgh's not willing to give San Francisco a trade offer that they really like, and it also seems like Ayuk and the 49ers are relatively far apart on contract negotiations. So is it completely far-fetched for Adam Peters to give his buddy John Lynch a call and say, hey man, has your price gone down? Can we get something going here? I'm just saying, don't be completely shocked if we get a blockbuster trade here, and a surprising one at that, where Brandon Ayuk gets reunited with Jaden Daniels, his best friend, here in the nation's capital. So let me know down there in the comments section, who's your guy? Name a wide receiver that you would want the Commanders to add before this season. If it's nobody, say nobody. If you want to go get Michael Thomas, say him. If you want to trade for Brandon Ayuk and give him $28 million per season on a massive extension, let me know down there in the comments section. Do the Commanders need a receiver? And if so, who you bringing in? So today, man, let's talk a little bit about the joint practice with the Miami Dolphins in Miami. Of course, the game will be this Saturday, and by the way, we will be going live for that, for our live watch party. And something that was really encouraging to me is that Jaden Daniels was really dealing in the red zone. If you guys don't know anything about the red zone in the National Football League, it's tougher for quarterbacks to be efficient in that area of the field because everything is condensed, right? There's no top that you can take off the defense, right? The defense knows how much space they have to work with, and windows are extremely tight. But David Ferrones here says that Commanders QB Jaden Daniels lights up Dolphins defense in red zone drill. He throws 5 touchdowns, including 2 to Terry McLaurin, beating Kendall Fuller, former Commander, by the way, once, and then Kader Kohu later. So listen, man, this is definitely encouraging. If you are a Washington Commander fan, Jaden Daniels has had a phenomenal offseason followed by a phenomenal training camp. He looked great in that first preseason game, and now it looks like he's going to get a little bit more run as the QB1 of this football team this weekend against the Miami Dolphins in Hard Rock Stadium. It's going to be a lot of fun, man. We're going to be covering it live here for our live watch party here on the Commanders Report. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now, because we're going to have you guys covered with everything that you guys need to know about the Washington Commanders this year. We got pretty much daily videos for you guys to enjoy. We got live watch parties for just about every single Commanders game this season. You're not going to want to miss any of the action, guys, so make sure you click that subscribe button right now. First segment out of the way. Get those F Joeys in the chat for the get those F Joeys. So producer Coop was the one that made the graphics, and there was some hiccups there I noticed with the graphics, but
hey, the nameplate.
But the nameplate that's on Joey. So F Joey and F Coop.
But for the likes and for the no depth chart, that's an F Coop in the chat.
Yeah, F Coop, man. He said we were all good, too. I'm starting to think he didn't check the graphics.
I guarantee you.
Because, I mean, Commanders Report, Cowboys Report, getting the wrong graphics, the wrong colors. That's unacceptable, man. Like, what are we doing here? We got some people in the chat. We got Ty Young says, nice fit, Jack. Yeah, I had to bring out the burgundy today, you know. I had to bring out the burgundy a little bit today. We got Dennis Irvin. Says, keep the one we got. Don't give up on him yet. I mean, I'm really hoping for Jahan Dotson, man. I really liked him coming out of Penn State. I thought he had a really good rookie season. But he had a rough year last year, and I had high hopes for him heading into the year, but it seems like other guys are playing better than him. Alameda Zaccheaus, De'Ami Brown have had really good camps, and it seems like Dotson, if I'm being honest, hasn't even been a top 3 receiver in camp to this point, and that definitely concerns me.
It's concerning, it's frustrating, and I think this is a thing across the entire NFL. When you spend that high of a draft pick on someone, it's always hard to get it through your head that they might not pan out. And unfortunately, that just might be the case here. I think there's still a lot to prove. We got a lot of preseason games, and he's finally with a really good quarterback. But, man, it's definitely frustrating, definitely concerning.
Yeah, and the fact that he's working with Jaden Daniels and he isn't showing out, the fact that he isn't looking better with a better quarterback throwing him the football, to me is very concerning. Now, listen, man, it's preseason, it's training camp, but usually my rule is for training camp and preseason, if you're not looking good in these practices and in these preseason games, are you really going to look good in the regular season? Like, are you really going to be turning things around from that point? I'm just skeptical at this point. I'm rooting for the guy a lot because, I mean, you look at the last 2 first-round picks for the Commanders before Jaden Daniels, from the Ron Rivera era and you know, the previous regime, they drafted Emmanuel Forbes their final year and the Jahan Dotson the year prior.
Yeah.
If both of those guys end up being duds, this team is going to be in a lot of trouble because they're really counting on both of those guys to be studs this year if they want any shot at making the postseason. And unfortunately, right now, both of them are really struggling in these practices and in these games.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that the old regime is still screwing the Commanders, even though they're out of the building with those past 2 draft picks.
And listen,
and I think that Forbes is under as much pressure as anybody else. We saw it last week against the Jets, him getting schooled by a guy who might not make a roster.
Yeah, it was. I really hope Emmanuel Forbes and Jahan Dotson show us something on Saturday. I really do. Because right now it just looks like the arrow is pointing down on both of them, and I don't want to be saying that, guys. I really don't. I want to be able to come up here and say Emmanuel Forbes and Jahan Dotson are playing great at practice, right? I want to say these guys are going to be breakout stars for this team this year, all right? But I'm not going to lie to you, man. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you what you want to hear if it's not the truth, okay? And the truth is right now these guys are struggling, and I hope they turn it around. I hope it's just because like it's a new regime and they're still getting their feet wet, and eventually they're going to figure it out. I genuinely hope that. But if I'm the Commanders right now, and if the 49ers would take, I don't know, a 2nd-round pick, maybe even 2 seconds, and Jahan Dotson in exchange for Brandon Ayuk, I'm taking that deal. I'm taking that deal.
Zero hesitation.
I mean, giving Jaden Daniels, like his best friend, who he works out with in the offseason, I mean, if there's any receiver that the Commanders should add, it is that guy, because he is not only an all-pro caliber talent that makes your team immediately better on offense, but it gives you gives your young quarterback 2 elite number 1 weapons to work with. I mean, you can't double team either Terry McLaurin or Brandon Ayuk without opening up the other guy. So it's going to be really difficult for opposing offenses to handle the Commanders if they get Brandon Ayuk. And here's the other thing. It seems like if Washington enters the race again, they can get him at a discount because the Pittsburgh Steelers are lowballing the 49ers right now. It seems like Ayuk and the Niners are still relatively far apart in contract negotiations because it sounds like the 49ers don't want to pay him. So if that's the case, that seems like a good opportunity for the Commanders to slither their way in there and get a steal at the last second for an all-pro caliber receiver.
You've heard teams like the Steelers and like the Browns, they're all in on, or want to be all in for the Brandon Ayuk sweepstakes. Why do you think the Commanders have fallen out of the race?
Oh, I think initially the 49ers price tag was too high. I mean, back when the Patriots and the Browns were still in this race, I think they wanted like a good receiver, and then they wanted a 2nd-round pick, and then they wanted a mid-round pick. And right now, I mean, I think the Steelers aren't offering them any players. I think they're only offering like a 2nd-round pick next year and then a mid-round pick the following draft. And for an all-pro caliber receiver, the San Francisco 49ers know if they take that deal, they're getting fleeced.
That's an easy no.
So, like, if the Commanders come in and say, hey, man, we'll give you a 2nd and a 3rd, and maybe Jahan Dotson, I think the 49ers are like, you know what, man? Let's pull this thing off. Adam Peters and John Lynch, obviously very tight. Okay, Peters obviously came from the 49ers this past offseason, former assistant GM there. Like, it makes sense that this could still happen. Now, because it has been reported that they're out, right, it's very possible that they're just not going to get back in. They've washed their hands of this, they're done. But I just think that there's an amazing opportunity right here to not only get an all-pro caliber receiver, but also get a receiver that already has established chemistry with your quarterback that you have invested an entire new regime under. So I just think it makes a lot of sense to enter back into this race. Will they do it? I don't know. Maybe they're just fine with Olamide Zaccheaus, and they're fine with De'Ami Brown, and they're fine with Jahan Dotson. That's very possible as well, because you might have to give McLaurin a new contract next year too. So the money situation might get weird if you trade for Ayuk now. But I don't know, man. If the Commanders want to go win this year, I think the Brandon Ayuk thing makes a lot of sense for them. Ty
saying in the chat, trade Daniels for Ayuk. I don't think that would make sense, Ty. I think you need Daniels to get Ayuk.
All right, man. Let's get into it right now. Let's get into this preview, because this is going to be a lot of fun here. We got 2 more segments. Again, we do have the mailbag coming up, so if you guys want to get a question on the show, you guys can use hashtag Commanders. Greg Shanahan is down there putting in his hashtag Commanders, so that's great stuff. Make sure you guys use that hashtag Commanders down there in the comment section to get on the show. What's that?
I got to get your X back in. Allie took it out.
Oh, okay. That's fine. So Jonathan Taylor gets his question in. Make sure you guys get those questions in, man. We got about 100 people watching live around the world right now. If you want to get a question on the show, hashtag Commanders followed by a question, and we'll get you on today's mailbag. It's going to be interesting here, man. There's a lot of moves that if the Commanders wanted to win this year, I would make, right? I would sign Stephon Gilmore. I would even sign Xavier Howard. All right, I would sign David Bakhtiari if he wanted to come here. I would make the trade for Brandon Ayuk. But I think the reason why the Commanders aren't doing those moves is because they want as much cap space as possible saved so that they can move it over and roll it over to next year so they can really splurge heading into the second year of this regime, because they understand a rookie quarterback has never won a Super Bowl. First-year head coaches in a new building usually don't win Super Bowls. All right, so they're banking on Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels to be ready to rock by the start of year 2, and I think that they think if they spend money this year, they'll have less money to spend next year, and that limits their possibilities heading into year 2 of this regime, which I understand, but I think that definitely points to this organization not expecting to really be a good team this year, like a legit Super Bowl contender. I think that they would like to make the playoffs. I think that they would love that, but the fact that they're not going out and making these moves for a Stephon Gilmore or David Bakhtiari or Brandon Ayuk does tell me that they still feel like they're a year away, and that this year is an establishment year to try to establish a culture, get Jaden Daniels' feet wet, all that great stuff so that they're ready to go and ready to rock in year 2.
Well, and I think that's smart. They know they're not the Ravens. They know they're not the Bills, not the Chiefs. Those teams, their windows are now, right?
Yep.
Especially with quarterbacks like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, who have been so dominant for so long and haven't gotten there yet. Those teams' windows are now. The Commanders know they're close, but they're not there yet, and they don't want to spoil anything in the future.
Dennis Irving, I see your question down there. That's a good question. Put hashtag Commanders in front of that question, and we can get it on the mailbag, okay? So, again, hashtag Commanders, get your question in the chat behind that, and we'll make sure you guys can get on the show. Okay, man, let's get into it right now. My preview for Week 2 of the preseason versus the Miami Dolphins. Welcome into the Commanders Report. I am your host, Jack Sperry, and today I have 8 things that you guys need to be keeping your eye on for the Washington Commanders preseason Week 2 matchup against the Miami Dolphins in Miami Gardens at Hard Rock Stadium this weekend. And again, guys, we're going to be going live for our live watch party here, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time here on the Commanders Report. We're going to be going live for just about every single Commanders game, preseason, regular season, and who knows, maybe some postseason games as well if we're lucky. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Again, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and we will be going live all throughout the season as well. We have a weekly live show every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern as well. It's a great community of Commanders fans here, man. We're getting really close to 20,000 subscribers. Help us get closer right now by clicking that subscribe button. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to be keeping my eye on here is I want to give Maverick, otherwise known as Jaden Daniels, that's my new nickname for him, some more run. Okay, he had one drive drive last week against the Jets, and it looked really good. He had that deep bomb down the field that he audibled to, even though he didn't have permission to. He had that great run from the read option. He made the right read. He got a touchdown. All that's great, but it was a super small sample size, all right? I want to see him go up against a first-team NFL defense in the Miami Dolphins, a team that's probably going to make the playoffs this year. Lots of talent on that defense, and I want to see him show the same things that he did against the Jets last weekend. Last weekend, the Jets kind of played their backups. They didn't really play any of their starters, so it was more of like a second-team defense. And this week, it looks like Daniels is going to get more playing time. He's going to get more pass attempts. He's going to get more drives, more opportunities, and it's going to be up against a first-team defense. So this is really going to be a huge litmus test to see if Jaden Daniels is ready to be this team's QB1 heading into week 1 against the Buccaneers. Another thing that I'm going to be looking out for here is I want Emmanuel Forbes to show us something, all right? Because what he has only shown us so far in training camp is disappointment to this point. He's had some flashes, but generally whenever he's going up against really good receivers that he should be going up against here as a first-round pick heading into his second year, he gets absolutely toasted. I mean, last week against the Jets, he gave up a touchdown against a receiver that's probably not even going to make their roster in Brownlee, okay? And I think that Forbes needs to get it going, or else he might end up getting benched again, okay? We know that he got benched last year multiple times because he really struggled in coverage. He was a liability in the run and screen game because he just doesn't have the functional strength to go up against these other receivers that block him. So Forbes needs to get it going, man. He really does. I'm really rooting for him. I really want him to be that ball hawk type player that he was at Mississippi State, where he had 6 pick sixes, an NCAA record, but he just hasn't shown that level of play here in the National Football League, at least not yet. I'm hoping he does that against some really good receivers that the Dolphins have. Then we go to Jahan Dotson here, and I'm wondering if he can bounce back after, kind of a slow start to training camp, and then he didn't have the best week last week against the New York Jets. He fell down on a route where he should have been wide open for a touchdown. I know some people thought it was holding, but he fell down on his own. And it does sound like, according to what Dan Quinn is talking about right now during practices, that Dotson's on the hot seat, and there's legitimate competition with Olamide Zaccheaus, with De'Ami Brown, with Luke McCaffrey. It sounds like a lot of people are getting opportunities to see who is the best receiver to fill that wide receiver 2 spot. We all know Terry McLaurin is the number 1, all right? But it seems like Jahan Dotson isn't playing well enough to secure himself as a former first-round pick heading into his 3rd year in the league as the number 2 receiver, and that's definitely disappointing. However, a good week this week could definitely help his chances quite a bit. So let me know down there in the comments section. We've talked about Emmanuel Forbes and Jahan Dotson, the first-round picks for both 2022 and 2023 for this football team. Both of them struggling right now, so let me know down there in the comments section who's got the hotter seat. Type EF for Emmanuel Forbes or type JD for Jahan Dotson. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. Another thing I'll be looking out for here is how does Andrew Wiley look? He was injured last week, so he's going to be getting kind of his first game action of the year coming up here. And, his cap hit is pretty high, right? It's getting close to $10 million after he signed that contract with this team last offseason. And that's the 4th highest on the team. And despite that high cap hit, he did not perform well last year. And, you have to play him because he's your 4th highest paid player on the team. But he gave up 9 sacks last year. That is unacceptable heading into this year with Jaden Daniels under center. So Andrew Wiley, they kept him around this year for a reason. At least I hope. I really hope that he shows that he is capable of still being a starting caliber tackle here in the National Football League this Saturday. So coming up here on the Commanders Report, more storylines to watch. I got 4 more storylines for you guys to keep your eye on here. But before we get into it, man, Jaden Daniels is looking phenomenal in Commanders training camp right now. And if you want to get his officially licensed Commanders jersey in your closet just in time for the start of the regular season, you can go chatsports.com/Daniels right now to pick up your very own Jaden Daniels Commanders jersey. Also, if you click our link, chatsports.com/Daniels, I'll put that link in the comments and description of today's show. If you click that link and you make a purchase, Fanatics is going to send us part of the proceeds. So not only can you get a Jaden Daniels jersey in your closet, but you also get to help out the channel. So if that sounds good to you guys, go to chatsports.com/Daniels and get your jersey today. So now another thing that I'm going to be watching out for, somebody that really impressed me during the Jets game was Michael Wiley, the running back, undrafted free agent this year. And honestly, I thought he looked better than Chris Rodriguez Jr. All right, Chris looked a little slow. He looked like he couldn't really get going, but Michael Wiley was making guys miss. He showed really good vision. He was working with the blocks that the offensive line was giving him, and he also had a touchdown. All right, so he had a really nice day, and I'm hoping for another nice day against the Miami Dolphins when he eventually plays in the second half. Right now, based on the performance last week, I think he could potentially challenge Chris Rodriguez Jr. For the number 3 running back spot. So that competition is definitely going to be one that I'm looking out for. Another player that impressed me week 1 of the preseason was Braden Daniels, somebody that missed his entire rookie season. He plays right and left tackle in that game against the Jets, and he looked good at both spots. Okay, so right now we know that tackle is a big question mark. Brandon Coleman is a huge question mark with the injuries he's dealing with right now. Cornelius Lucas, I'm not a huge believer in terms of a full year starter type of guy. And then we already talked about my concerns with Andrew Wiley after the season he had last year. So if Braden Daniels can come out of nowhere here and really be a really good player for this offensive line, that could be a godsend for the Washington Commanders. Had a really good week last week. I'm hoping he can follow it up with another good performance, man. And make sure you guys like the video if you haven't already. If you're pumped for Saturday like I am, man, it's going to be a lot of fun. Jaden Daniels is going to get a lot more run, or at least we hope, than he had against the Jets. So if you're ready to see Jaden Daniels light it up for the Commanders once again on Saturday, make sure you click that thumbs up icon and like today's video. 2 more storylines to get to here. Martavis Bryant was signed this week. He's somebody that hasn't played in an NFL game since 2018. So it's been a long time coming for Martavis Bryant, and he does bring size to this wide receiver room, so I'm intrigued to see how he plays. I think he's going to play mostly in the second half. But he does have that big frame. He is a former NFL pro. There is a reason after such a long hiatus, teams are willing to bring him in for workouts and keep him on their roster. So obviously he's looked impressive enough. I guess we'll see how good he looks in actual game action. And then Riley Patterson seems to have won the Commanders' starting kicker competition. They released Ramiz Ahmed, but Patterson hasn't really kicked all that well this preseason and in training camp either. He's missed a lot of kicks, including one in that first preseason game against the Jets. So he has to earn his job. All right, if he continues to miss kicks, the Commanders are going to have no choice but to release him and to try to find somebody else from another team that eventually gets cut at the end of the preseason. So make no mistake, even with Ramiz Ahmed out of the building, Riley Patterson still needs to prove that he is worth this position for the Washington Commanders. So shout out your guy down there in the comment section. Which non-quarterback are you most excited to watch on Saturday? We're all excited to see Jaden Daniels, right? He's obviously at the top of the list. But outside of JD, which guy are you most excited to watch? For me personally, I think I'm actually excited to watch Braden Daniels. Offensive line play, man. I'm really hoping that he can be that surprise standout player for the Commanders this year on the offensive line. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We will be going live 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Joey Peterson is going to be going live for our live watch party this weekend. So make sure you click that subscribe button. And until next time, hail to the Commanders. All right, mailbag coming up here soon. If you haven't gotten your question in, yet, make sure you get that in. We got Jonathan Taylor in here. We got Greg Shanahan. We got Ty Young. We got Eugene, who's excited to see Mike Sainristil. Got Jasmine Gray in here. We got DMV Bay. DMV Bay says Rodriguez is in the hot seat. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll have to see.
I gotta ask. There we go. I gotta ask Jonathan. Hey, man, are you ready to snipe these bots for me on Saturday? We're gonna need you to be the mod again.
Jonathan Taylor, we're gonna need you in the house on Saturday to get rid of these bots.
He crushed them on Saturday.
Yes, he did, and I think Cassie's in here too. Cassie's also a mod, I believe, so she can get rid of the bots as well. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We still got 82 people watching. If you guys want to send in a donation, you guys certainly don't have to. Our menu is right here. Any super chat, you get a shout out, you get some love. A $5 super chat will do an F the Cowboys chant. $10, we'll take some shots for you, and then $20, you can get into Hog Mafia. If you want to send in a donation that's not Super Chat, we get to keep more of the proceeds when you send it to Venmo, Cashapp, or PayPal. So you can find me at Jack-Sperry, # Captain Jack 19 on Cash App, or at Captain Jack Rabbit on PayPal. Do we have enough questions here?
Yeah, I do. I think so.
Okay, so let's get into the mailbag. Remember, guys, when Joey and I are in the mailbag, you guys can still get your questions in, all right? So if you have something that pops up in the middle of the mailbag, you guys can still use #Commanders or Super Chat down there in the live chat, and we can get your question on the show. But without further ado here, Joey, are we ready to get things going?
Yeah, let me get my timer going real quick.
All right, sounds good. Who's all going to be here? Type me in the chat if you're going to be here on Saturday. Type me in the chat if you're going to be here. We got Cassie in here. We got Jonathan. We got Eugene. We got Greg. We got Jasmine. We got Jebkid. We got Patriot Clips.
Let's go. Looking forward to seeing all you guys on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun, man. So without further ado, let's get into the mailbag right now here. Joey Peterson, the latest edition of the Commanders Report Live Q&A. It is the Commanders Report mailbag. I am your host, Jack Sperry, and today I love these mailbag segments, guys, because I get to talk with you guys directly, that one-on-one conversation. You guys tell me what you want me to talk about, and I answer your questions. If you want to get a question on a future edition of the Commanders Report mailbag, you have to watch our live shows, and in order to watch our live shows, you got to be subscribed to the channel. We're getting really close to 20,000 subscribers here on the Commanders Report, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now to join the most interactive Commanders fan community here on the platform. I really do appreciate all of your guys' support. So if you will, make sure you click that subscribe button. Join us for our Commanders Report live shows every single Thursday starting at 5 p.m. Eastern. And then you guys can get your questions here on the show. Let's start with my man, Jonathan Taylor here, one of the OGs, says, thoughts on Trace McSorley signing. I think it's another camp body, essentially. Sam Hartman's hurt. He can't participate in games or practices right now, so you need somebody to fill his spot in the rotation. And McSorley's somebody that's been on practice squads. He's been on different teams, and he's just kind of been a journeyman here. And he's just I don't think he's going to make the roster. Let's put it that way. You got Jaden Daniels. You've got Marcus Mariota, you got Jeff Driscoll. I think Driscoll is significantly better than McSorley. So at this point, I think he's just a camp body. Then we got one from my man, Kenny Strasser. What's up, Kenny? Says, who do you think gets more total touchdowns this year, B-Rob or Eckler? I think Eckler has looked better than most people thought he would. He's looked better than I thought he would. All right, last year I thought he kind of lost the step a little bit. This year he looks better. I will say that for sure. I don't know if it's exactly all the way back to where it was with the Chargers, but hey, man, if you're getting 80% of what Austin Eckler was with the Los Angeles Chargers in his prime, you're taking that. In terms of who gets more touchdowns, I think it's going to be Brian Robinson. The reason why I think that is I think he gets more goal line work. Right, he's the bigger back. He's somebody that can bruise a little bit more than Eckler. Eckler's going to be more of the receiving back. He's going to be the guy that's in there on second and long, obvious passing situations, that kind of stuff, and also as a secondary back. But when you're close to the end zone, I do believe B-Rob is going to be that guy. So I will say B-Rob for that question. Then we got one from Abdul. What's up, Abdul? Says, do we think the draft picks were more heavily influenced by Dan Quinn or Adam Peters? I say Dan Quinn. So when he says heavily influenced, what does he mean? Does he mean like who made the decisions? If he means who made the decisions, it's the final call is Adam Peters. Now, obviously, Dan Quinn and his coaches have, pretty significant say in terms of what they're looking for, in terms of the players that they want and the style of players that they want to fill certain roles. But Adam Peters is the GM. He's the one that makes the final decisions. If he's talking about influencing people on the practice field, it's obviously Dan Quinn. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by this question, Abdul, but I tried to answer it in both ways. I kind of saw the interpretation going. But I think what you mean here is who decided who drafted these players, and it was Adam Peters. Then we got one from Crocker Betty. Says, I saw Antonio Brown say the Commanders have reached out to him. There's no way this question actually exists. Trying to acquire him. Any truth to that? He is a primary source, LOL. I'm going to say this right now, guys. There is no way Antonio Brown gets signed by the Washington Commanders. No way. No way. This is a team that is trying to establish a culture, all right? You don't do that by bringing in Antonio Brown that you have no idea what he's going to do at any moment, all right? He can just leave the team at any moment, right? He did that with the Raiders and the Buccaneers. It's not good, all right? So Antonio Brown, he's 36 years old now, by the way, too. I just don't think there's any way. I think Antonio was kind of playing a prank on us there on X. I don't think the Commanders have reached out to him. I don't believe this report whatsoever. And I can tell you guys this right now. Antonio Brown will not be a Washington Commander. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Would you bring in Antonio Brown at 36 years old to pair him up with Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin? Give me a yes or a no for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, give me a yes or a no down there in the comments. Going from Patriot Clips says, where are we with Fedarian Mathis? So he's currently competing to try to make this roster. John Ridgway is another guy that he's competing with. I guess we'll just have to see. Obviously, he was a former pretty high draft pick for the Washington Commanders, but as we know, Ron Rivera missed on a lot of these guys in his time making the decisions in the draft room. So I'm looking at this situation. I'm rooting for Mathis. He's a pretty good run defender, but he's not really doing much as a pass rusher. So I'm rooting for Mathis. I guess we'll see where everything shakes out. Got one from Jeffrey Lake, says, what's the expectations for Ben Sinnott? After last week's performance, they're rising. Let's put it that way. He looked awesome in that first preseason game. Yards after the catch, making tough catches, not going down easy, all the stuff that you want to see from a guy like that. And he really showed off his really rare quickness for his size and for the position of tight end. It's why the Commanders went out and got him, because you just don't see tight ends that are as fast and as quick as Ben Sinnott is. So I think that after last week, I'm feeling really good about his prospects. And because Zach Ertz is essentially a corpse at this point in his NFL career, I would expect Sinnott to get into that number one tight end role sooner rather than later. Before we get to the rest of the questions on the mailbag today, I want to tell you guys about today's sponsor at PrizePicks, which is the most exciting and easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and then watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks, which means you can turn $10 into $1,000. That is, if you know ball. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season, and make your picks in less than 60 seconds to turn your sports opinions into real money all season long. So this is some week 1 projections right here from our friends at PrizePicks. I'm going to take the less on Tyreek Hill receiving yards, the less on CJ Stroud passing yards. Same thing with Dak Prescott, because F the Cowgirls. You can download the PrizePicks app today to get started and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks on the PrizePicks app today for a deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, run your game. We got one from Jasmine Gray. What's up, Jasmine? Says, is it Washington Commanders will make the playoffs this year? If I had to guess, I would say no. And I hate to say that. But I think that, sometimes these things take a couple years. We saw Dan Campbell with the Detroit Lions is a great example. Took 2 years before Campbell was able to turn that organization into the winning franchise that it is today. And I see Dan Quinn as a highly respected person in this league in a very similar mold to Dan Campbell. You have to have talent to win in this league. And right now the Commanders, Jahan Dotson's not looking great in camp. Emmanuel Forbes isn't looking great in camp. You have major holes on the offensive line and at the outside cornerback position. I think the Commanders are going to do a lot of good things this year. They're going to be very entertaining to watch, which is something we have not been able to say about this team for the last several years. I think Daniels will show a lot of really good things. And heading into the year 2 of this regime, that's when I think I'm really going to start to get excited about this squad because usually going into year 2 is when quarterbacks coming out of the draft really start to play well. That's when head coaches really start to get their footing. And also it sounds like the Commanders are saving up a ton of cap space so that they can be big spenders in next year's offseason. So I'm really excited about the prospects of the future for this football team, but I want to preach patience here because, the team and the roster isn't all the way there yet. I see this year as more of a foundational year. Set the culture in place, get Jaden Daniels' feet wet here in the league, and then let's go forward here into year 2 and beyond, hopefully with the Commanders being a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Then we got Eugene here. Says, what is the biggest area of concern for Washington currently? If I'm being honest, man, it's the offensive line. And, if I can put another one in there, equally as concerning is the outside cornerback situation. I mean, they really came into the year, I think, with putting a lot of chips in the middle of the table for Emmanuel Forbes to pan out. And right now, the early returns in practices and in these preseason games haven't looked good, okay? And that's just the truth of it. So I look at the offensive line. Allegretti, I hope he plays well, but he's never been a full-time starter. Same thing with Cornelius Lucas. Brandon Coleman was extremely raw coming out of TCU. He had like a 56.6 PFF grade last year, which is awful, and that's in college football. Now he's going to be going up and being asked to go up against number 1 edge rushers as a left tackle in the National Football League. Color me skeptical on that. I'm rooting for him, though. It's just a big question mark on the offensive line, then also at the outside cornerback position. And it seems like the team isn't going to alleviate those needs in free agency before the season. So I think those two things are probably going to be the biggest holes. Then we got Bastian. I hope I'm saying that right, my friends. Is there any shot Trace McSorley makes the final roster? Is there a chance? Sure. All right, but I think it's going to have to involve an injury to Marcus Mariota or Jeff Driscoll. And not to mention Hartman is going to have to lose out to him as well. So I think it's a very much an uphill battle for Trace McSorley. He's going into camp extremely late at this point. I think Jeff Driscoll's looked pretty decent as a number 3 option. So I really don't see Trace McSorley as somebody that's going to end up making this final roster. So let me know down there in the comments section which quarterbacks end up making the final roster. To me, it's pretty clear. I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels, Marcus Mariota, and Jeff Driscoll. But if you think Sam Hartman or Trace McSorley makes it, let me know your thoughts and your reasoning down there in the comments section. And we got one from Ty Young. What's up, Ty? Says, what y'all think of Martavis Bryant? Think he will make the team? So like Trace McSorley, I really think that Martavis Bryant has a very much an uphill battle. I think that the depth in this wide receiver room is actually pretty decent. You got guys like De'Ami Brown, Jahan Dotson, Luke McCaffrey, Olamide Zaccheaus. I like Mitchell Tinsley as well. I like Bryson Tremaine. I like the depth of this wide receiver room. And Martavis hasn't played since 2018. So listen, they brought him in for a reason. Obviously, they like him enough to give him another shot here in the National Football League at his age. But he's going to have to really impress, and he's going to have to really get things going to make the team. So make sure you guys like the video if you haven't already. If you are pumped for Saturday, just like we are, man, it's going to be a lot of fun this season here on the Commander Support. And if you're excited to hang out with us on Saturday, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon right now. We got Jay's brother here, says, on a scale of 0 to 10, how worried are you about Jahan Dotson? Good question. Right now, I have to say I'm at about a 7.5 or an 8, and that's a high number. But, the fact that he's a first-round selection going into his 3rd year, and the head coach of the team that he's on is saying that guys like Olamide Zaccheaus, De'Ami Brown, rookie Luke McCaffrey are in the same conversation as he is for wide receiver 2, that's concerning. He's been having a slow start to camp. He didn't have a great first preseason game. By the time this comes out, the game on Saturday will already be over, but I guess we'll see how he does then. But right now, it's definitely concerning, especially for the type of talent that he is and how slow his start has been. So let me know down there in the comment section, is it time to panic on Jahan Dotson? How worried are you about Jahan Dotson? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Put it on a scale of 0 to 10 for me. I'm at a 7.5 or an 8. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. That's going to be the end of today's mailbag. Really good questions this week, guys. If you want to get your question on next week's mailbag, again, we go live every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button. And until next time, hail to the Commanders. All right, Joey, our segments are done for the day. Ty Young says, I'm out. See you Saturday at the watch party, Ty. We'll see you, man. We're going to get going as well. I appreciate you guys. He's absolutely unbelievable. Great community here. We got still over 80 people watching, so that's phenomenal. Joey, you're going to be doing your first watch party as the host of the Commanders Report on Saturday. I wish you the best of luck, my friend. And I think you're going to kill it. It's going to be absolutely awesome. I can't wait to watch it. And yeah, man, just best of luck to you guys. And you guys are going to have so much fun on Saturday, man, because Jaden's going to be playing pretty much an entire quarter. There's a lot of big storylines that we talked about today that Joey's going to be tracking on Saturday. So it's going to be a real good one, man. Make sure you tune in to the Commanders Report, 6:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Joey, got anything you want to say before we say goodbye today?
I'm excited to hang out with you all on Saturday. We're going to have a blast. We're going to take back some drinks, hang out, watch some football, and then the following Sunday, final preseason game, we'll be back in these spots together for the final game of the year. So make sure you guys tune in for the next two.
Absolutely. Okay, man. Let's get going here. We got Lord Buddy Bear says, any new Ayuk drama today? Not really. The thing about the Ayuk stuff is that it has been dead silent for almost 2 days at this point, which is weird because it sounded like the 49ers were kind of wanting something to get done quickly, but everything is stalled these past 2 days. So I was somebody that said I really thought something was going to happen this week, but after everything getting so quiet here, I'm starting to think we might go another week without knowing where Brandon Ayuk's going to be playing football here in 2024. And this is probably the craziest trade situation I can ever remember. The Deshaun Watson thing was a circus, but that got resolved eventually. Like, this stuff, it just keeps going on and on and on. And by the way, if there's a team that's going to be a dark horse that comes out of nowhere, because most people think either A, a trade to Pittsburgh is going to happen, or B, an extension happens. But I still think the Commanders have an opportunity to slide back in there. And we discussed it earlier, right? Because right now, the trade price has definitely decreased. So as long as the Commanders can make a better offer than what the Steelers are offering right now, plus they have the connection with the Adam Peters, John Lynch thing, plus Brandon Ayuk is best friends with Jaden Daniels, it just makes sense to go get him. So, I'll put it at like a 5% chance, probably less than that they trade for him because apparently they're out. I don't know why, but apparently they're out. But I mean, if I'm sitting there and I'm Adam Peters, I'm like, if there's any receiver I want to add to this team and to Jaden Daniels to help him out early on in his career, you have an opportunity to get his best friend, who happens to be an all-pro receiver right now. And you can get him for 75 cents on the dollar in a trade. It just seems like a no-brainer move for Adam Peters to pull that trigger to me, especially with everything going on right now. But what do I know, man? I'm just a guy on YouTube talking football. All right, that'll be it for us here, man. We'll see you guys on Saturday for the watch party. Till next time, hail to the Commanders.